My hands were still wet from the kitchen sink when the notification cut through the quiet like a knife. I was standing in the middle of our apartment in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, the kind of place where silence actually costs extra. High ceilings, harbor views, the faint hum of the dishwasher finishing its cycle. It was a Tuesday night in late fall, rain tapping against the floor-to-ceiling windows, smearing the lights from the pier into soft gold streaks. Nothing dramatic, just an ordinary evening winding down. I reached for my phone on the counter, expecting a news alert or maybe a work email. Instead, it was my banking app, a push notification glowing on the black screen. Transaction alert. €4,900. Penthouse suite upgrade plus concierge services, Hotel Plaza Athénée, Paris. I blinked. Paris. Not Paris, Texas. Paris, France. For one stupid second, I thought it had to be fraud. Some hacker halfway across the world testing stolen card numbers. My thumb hovered over the Report Fraud button. I deal with risk for a living at Harbor Ridge Risk Partners. Discrepancies in data are my daily bread. This was just a glitch, an anomaly. I could fix it and get back to my tea. Then I opened the full details. Authorized user, E. Whitmore. Eleanor Whitmore, my mother-in-law. The air left my lungs in a slow, controlled exhale, the kind I use in boardrooms when a client is about to lose millions and I have to stay calm. My fingers went cold against the phone. I wasn't looking at fraud. I was looking at theft. My name is Amelia Harrington, 35 years old, senior risk manager. The obsidian card, the black metal one that makes that satisfying clack when you set it down, was mine. Not family money, not an inheritance, mine. 15 years of 60-hour weeks, perfect credit, calculated investments, never carrying a balance. That card was proof I had built something unbreakable. And now Eleanor was using it like her personal ATM in Paris. I pulled up the recent messages from my husband, Julian. The last one, sent 4 hours ago. Heading into a late partner dinner with the team. Don't wait up. Love you. A partner dinner. In Portsmouth? Maybe Boston if it ran long, but Paris was 6 hours ahead. If that charge was real, and it was, Julian wasn't in a conference room eating overpriced steak with colleagues. He was in a penthouse suite drinking champagne I paid for. I navigated to the card management section. There it was. A new supplementary card issued 48 hours ago. No spending limit, no approval from me, just activated and shipped to an address in Brighton Heights, Eleanor's address. The phone buzzed again in my hand. An international number, French country code. I let it ring out. 2 seconds later, it rang again. This time, the contact photo filled the screen. Eleanor at last year's charity auction, pearls gleaming, holding a glass of vintage Krug, smiling that tight, polished smile that never reached her eyes. Incoming call. Eleanor Whitmore. She wasn't calling to confess. Eleanor didn't confess. She was calling because the transaction had flagged something on her end, too, and she wanted to make sure I didn't do anything inconvenient. I silenced it. A text popped up from Julian. Hey babe, everything okay? Card's acting weird on my end. Weird. That's what he called it. I didn't reply. Instead, I dialed the number on the back of my physical card, the dedicated concierge line for Obsidian clients. No hold music, no bots. It rang once. Good evening, Miss Harrington. How may I assist you? I have a transaction alert, €4,900 at Hotel Plaza Athénée in Paris, authorized by a supplementary user, Eleanor Whitmore. A soft tap of keys. Yes, I see it. Chip and pin authorization at the concierge desk 20 minutes ago. I did not authorize a supplementary card for Eleanor Whitmore. Pause. More typing. The request was processed with a digital power of attorney upload dated 2 days ago. Power of attorney. My stomach dropped. 6 months ago, I'd had minor surgery, an ankle reconstruction after a bad fall on icy steps. Pain pillars, hospital lights, Eleanor hovering with paperwork just in case. I'd signed it half-conscious so Julian could handle bills if I was out of it, for emergencies. Apparently, this qualified. The agent continued, "We can place a temporary freeze while we verify." "No," I said. My voice was steady, scarily steady. "I don't want a freeze. I want the entire account canceled, reported as compromised, now." A beat of silence. "Miss Harrington, canceling the primary account will void all supplementary cards immediately. Any pending holds, like the hotel's pre-authorization, will fail." "I understand." Another click. "Processing. Account closed. A new card will be expedited to your primary address in 3 to 5 business days." I hung up. The kitchen went perfectly quiet except for the rain. Then my phone erupted. "Transaction declined. Hotel Plaza Athénée. Transaction declined. Concierge services. Booking guarantee failed. Update payment method." A waterfall of red banners. Somewhere in Paris, a concierge was politely informing guests that their card was no longer valid. Somewhere in Paris, Eleanor was opening her designer bag, confused. Somewhere in Paris, Julian was realizing the gravy train had just derailed. I set the phone face down on the counter and watched the rain. The war had started, and I hadn't even had my tea yet.
The notifications kept coming, each one a little red flag in the quiet kitchen. Declined, declined, booking failed. I didn't move. I just watched them stack up like evidence in a file I was already building. I walked to the home office, our second bedroom really, where I kept the dual monitors and the neat stacks of folders. The room smelled faintly of coffee and printer ink, the way it always did after a long day. I sat down, opened my laptop, and logged into the bank portal. My fingers were steady now. This wasn't panic, this was analysis. First, the supplementary card details. Issued 2 days ago. Power of attorney document uploaded from an IP address that traced back to our home network. Not Eleanor's, ours. Someone had used my Wi-Fi to push the request through while I was asleep next door. I pulled up the access logs from my cloud storage, the secure folder where I kept scanned copies of important documents, including the original power of attorney from the hospital. There it was. A late-night access from Julian's iPad Pro. Timestamp 2:17 a.m. Tuesday, while I was in bed dreaming about quarterly reports. He hadn't just gone along with it. He'd been the one to hand over the file. I minimized the window and opened my email. Search term, authorization. Buried in the spam folder, because I'd been in back-to-back meetings and purged everything, was a confirmation from the bank. Subject, account document upload successful. Attachment, PDF of the request form. I opened it. My signature was there at the bottom. Clean, perfect, no hesitation in the strokes. Too perfect. I knew my own handwriting. The slight drag on the A when I was tired, the sharp cross on the H. This was identical to the one I'd signed in the hospital bed 6 months ago, drugged on painkillers and exhaustion. I overlaid the 2 images in an editing program. Pixel for pixel match. No variation in pressure, no micro jitters. Someone had scanned the original, cropped my signature, and pasted it onto the new form, a perfect digital forgery. The address field? Expedited to Eleanor's house in Brighton Heights. Of course, they couldn't risk me seeing the envelope arrive at our apartment. I sat back. The rain was louder now, drumming against the glass. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment loan. This was premeditated, planned. While I was buried in work, they decided my boundaries were negotiable. I went back to the bank logs. The original power of attorney, the one I'd signed for medical billing and utilities only, had been altered. The scope clause expanded digitally to full access to all banking, investment, and real estate assets. Grand larceny by deception. Felony territory. My phone buzzed again, a voicemail from Eleanor. I pressed play, speaker on, so the room could hear it with me. "Amelia, darling." Her voice was smooth, cultured, the same tone she used at charity boards. "There seems to be a problem with the card. The hotel is being difficult. Call me back immediately. We'll sort this out like family." Background noise? Clinking silverware, low murmurs, the ding of an elevator. Then, just for a second between her words, a familiar laugh. Julian's laugh, the one he saved for closing deals. And underneath it, a woman's voice, faint but clear. "Don't worry, Ellie. Let him handle it." Ellie? She called my mother-in-law Ellie.
I ended the playback. The silence in the office felt heavier. I opened Julian's old iPad, the one he'd upgraded from and left on the shelf, still synced to the cloud. Passcode 11992. His birth year. Simple, predictable. I went straight to the Files app. Recent downloads, Eurostar tickets, Paris to Prague. 2 seats, first class. Passenger 1, Julian Harrington. Passenger 2, Serena Hale. Serena Hale. The name hit like a cold wave. 3 months ago, at Eleanor's spring gala for the Whitmore Foundation, I'd been introduced to her. Glossy dark hair, practiced smile, younger than me by a few years. Serena's a PR wizard, Eleanor had gushed. She's consulting for us this year. She'll put us on the map. I'd shaken her hand, she'd said something polite about my organizational skills. Now, looking at her name next to my husband's on a train ticket, I realized it had been a compliment laced with pity. I was the staff, she was the talent, and Eleanor had introduced them. I closed the iPad. The room was dark except for the glow of the monitors. My heart wasn't racing anymore. It had settled into a slow, deliberate thud. This wasn't just an affair. This was a coup. They had planned it. They had used my trust, my signature, my money to fund it, and they thought I wouldn't notice. They were wrong. The office felt smaller now. The glow from the monitors, the only light in the room. I didn't turn on the overhead. I didn't want to see my own reflection in the glass. I knew exactly what it looked like. Calm on the outside, calculating on the inside. I went back to the cloud storage logs. The original hospital power of attorney had been accessed twice in the last week. Once by me, months ago. Once by Julian's iPad, 2:17 a.m. The file had been downloaded, then deleted from the access history. Sloppy, but not sloppy enough. I exported everything. Timestamps, IP addresses, device IDs. I created a new folder on my desktop, named it Timeline, dragged in the bank confirmation email, the overlaid signature screenshots, the Eurostar ticket PDF. I printed the concierge confirmation from the hotel, white peonies, vintage champagne, romantic arrival package for Mr. Harrington and guests. The flowers were my favorites. Julian had sent them to me on our 3rd anniversary. He hadn't even bothered to think of something new. I opened a browser tab and pulled up our shared Google Calendar. Julian's blocks were blue, mine green, joint ones yellow. Tonight's entry, client dinner, new prospects. Created yesterday, edited 3 times today. Location removed at 4 p.m. Note added, phone off during pitch. He'd been building an alibi in real time. I went to my spam folder again. Buried between promo emails was one from the hotel concierge. Subject, your romantic arrival package confirmation. Addressed to Mr. Julian Harrington. Dear Mr. Harrington, we are delighted to confirm the bottle of Dom Perignon 2012 and white peonies for the penthouse suite. Noted as a special occasion for you and your guest. Please contact us for any adjustments. Guest. Singular. No name. But I knew. I pulled up the Widover Foundation's website. Serena Hale was listed under Consulting Partners. Bio. Dynamic PR strategist specializing in high-profile events and media campaigns. Her photo was professional, glossy, the same smile I remembered from the gala. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt the cold settle deeper, like frost on glass. This wasn't a fling. This was a project. Eleanor had handpicked Serena, introduced her, given her access, probably coached her on how to charm Julian, how to make him feel like the king he thought he deserved to be. I went back to the voicemail from Eleanor, played it again, this time focusing on the background, the clink of glasses, the low murmur of voices, and that laugh, Julian's winning laugh, then Serena's voice, clear enough to cut. Don't worry, Ellie. Let him handle it. Ellie, not Mrs. Whitmore, not even Eleanor. Ellie. I saved the audio file to the timeline folder. My phone buzzed, a text from Serena Hale. Number I didn't have saved, but I recognized it from the train ticket metadata. Amelia, I don't know what's happening, but Eleanor is furious at the front desk. The card's dead. She's saying it's a glitch. I thought you knew about the trip. She told me it was a corporate expense that you'd signed off. I'm sorry if I got this wrong. Sorry. Cute. I screenshotted it, added it to the folder. Then another notification from the bank app. Not a decline this time, an outgoing wire transfer from our joint checking account. $5,000. Recipient, Kane and Associates. Memo, retainer fee. Kane and Associates, family law specialists, the same firm that had sent a courier receipt to our apartment 3 days ago. Julian signed for it while I was at work. They weren't just celebrating an affair, they were preparing for war, a divorce filing, alimony, asset division. They were going to use my own money to pay the lawyer who would try to take half of everything I'd built. I stared at the screen. The joint account was the one I hadn't touched yet. Mortgage auto payments came from there. They've moved fast. I closed the laptop. The snap echoed in the quiet room. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was focused. They thought I was the silent partner, the one who paid the bills and looked the other way, the one who was too afraid to be alone. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. The dishwasher had finished. The clean light glowed green. I poured myself a glass of water and drank it slowly. Tomorrow I would call Victoria Kane, not the divorce firm, but the one I knew from professional circles, the one they called the scalpel, the one who didn't negotiate. She dissected. I set the glass down. The timeline folder was growing, each file a nail, each timestamp a hammer. They started this, but I was going to finish it, and when I did, they would understand exactly how much a risk manager values a vulnerability. I turned off the lights and went to bed. The rain kept falling outside. Tomorrow would be a very long day. I didn't sleep much that night. The rain kept falling, steady and relentless, like it knew what was coming. By morning, the timeline folder had grown to 12 files, screenshots, PDFs, audio clips, logs, each one a brick in a wall I was building around them. I called Victoria Kane at 8 a.m. sharp. She picked up on the second ring. Amelia Harrington, I've heard of you. Risk management at Harbor Ridge. What's this about? I gave her the short version. Forged signature, supplementary card, Paris penthouse, husband's mistress, wire transfer to a divorce firm. She listened without interruption. When she finished, there was a brief pause. Send everything to my secure portal, now, and get here by noon. We're not playing defense, we're playing containment. I spent the next hour forwarding files. By the time I arrived at her office, a converted brownstone downtown, smelling of old books and strong coffee, Victoria was already scrolling through the timeline on her tablet. She looked up. You're thorough. I like that. We sat at her conference table. She wore a charcoal suit that looked like armor. I wore my usual navy blazer, but it felt heavier today. Here's the situation, she said. They've committed identity theft, wire fraud, and attempted impersonation. The bank's fraud team is already flagging it, but they're still in Paris, panicking. We don't starve them completely. Desperate people do stupid things, max out hidden cards, borrow from shady sources, go to the press crying abuse. We want them manageable. We want them to come home. So I pay for their flight back? Not exactly, she leaned forward. We give them just enough rope. She dialed her speakerphone to the Obsidian concierge line. I took over. I'd like to generate a virtual emergency card linked to my primary account. Hard cap at $1,500. Category restrictions, airlines and ground transportation only. Block hospitality, dining, luxury retail, cash advances. Any limit increase requires my biometric voice verification plus video confirmation. The agent processed it quickly. The virtual details landed in my secure inbox. I forwarded them to Julian with a single-line email. Emergency travel funds. Use this to return home. We'll resolve the rest in person. No greeting, no explanation. We waited. 14 minutes later, my banking app chimed. Transaction attempt, 4,200 euros, Austrian Airlines business class. Declined. Then, 1,480 euros, economy seats, approved. They'd figured out the ceiling. A minute later, another chime. Limit increase request for duty-free shopping. I let it go to voicemail. The bank flagged it as suspicious. Victoria pulled up the bank's real-time log on her wall screen. We watched like security chiefs monitoring a heist. First call, Julian. My wife's indisposed. Hospital emergency. This is for client transport. Agent. Requires voice biometric from Mrs. Harrington. He argued, threatened to get the agent fired. Call ended. 10 minutes later, failed impersonation attempt. Caller provided my SSN, mother's maiden name, bank balance. Voice print rejected. Female. Older. Eleanor. Victoria smiled. Federal offense. Identity theft attempt. Added to the stack. She filed an ex parte motion for a temporary restraining order on assets, joint checking, investments, home equity, all frozen within hours. My phone buzzed. Serena again. Screenshot attached. Text chain with Eleanor. Keep him calm. Don't let him drink at the airport. Delete your chats. We'll say it was a booking error. 2 rooms consolidated. Stick to the story. Amelia's paranoid. Serena was hedging. She knew the ship was sinking. She was feeding me intel so I might spare her. Victoria read it. Smart girl, but don't spare her. This proves conspiracy, premeditation. Eleanor is the architect. I saved the screenshot. The airline confirmation emailed me. Economy seats. Row 32A and 32B. Julian and Serena. Together. He was bringing her back, on my dime, to fight me in my own city. Victoria closed her laptop. They board in 2 hours. Go home, shower, eat, put on your best suit. When they land, we won't be waiting with flowers. We'll be waiting with papers. I stood up. The room felt lighter. They thought I'd cornered them. They had no idea I'd already built the cage. The arrivals hall at Logan International smelled of jet fuel, wet coats, and exhaustion. I stood near the railing with Victoria Kane, both of us in dark coats, blending into the crowd of families holding signs and drivers with tablets. No flowers, no welcome banner, just 2 women waiting for the fallout. Victoria glanced at her watch. Flight's on time. They should be through customs in 10 minutes. I didn't answer. My hands were in my pockets, fingers curled around the manila envelope containing the divorce petition. I felt steady. The kind of steady you get when you've already run every scenario and know the outcome.
The courtroom doors closed behind us with a heavy thud. The fluorescent hallway lights buzzed overhead, but the air outside the building was crisp, clean December cold that stung my cheeks as I stepped into the afternoon sun. Victoria walked beside me to the parking lot. She didn't speak until we reached her car. "You did it," she said. "We did it," I corrected. I unlocked my own car, slid into the driver's seat. The interior was quiet, safe. No notifications, no buzzing phone, just the faint scent of leather and the low hum of the engine as I turned the key. I reached into my purse and pulled out my wallet. The slot where the obsidian card used to sit was empty, just a rectangle of smooth leather, holding nothing. I ran my thumb over it. It didn't feel like loss. It felt like space, like room to breathe. My phone was still in my hand. One last thing. I opened the text thread with Julian. No new messages from him since the airport. I typed a single line. "From now on, you pay for your own choices." I hit send. Then I pressed and held the power button. The screen went black. The connection severed. I put the car in gear and pulled out of the lot. The courthouse shrank in the rearview mirror. The marriage, the debt, the years of quiet compromise, all of it fading behind me. I didn't know where I was going for dinner. I didn't know what I'd do with the rest of the night, or the weekend, or the rest of my life. But I knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next, whatever I bought, whatever I chose would be mine. Only mine. The road ahead was clear. The rain had stopped. The sky was starting to lighten, just a little. For the first time in years, I felt the weight lift. And I kept driving.